Hello and welcome to another episode of Boundless Body Radio. I'm your host, Casey Ruff, and today we have another amazing guest to introduce to you now. Casey Durango is the person behind the curtains at Go Keto with Casey. In 2014, at age 55, she discovered the ketogenic diet. After 30 years of being morbidly obese, she used the diet to lose an astonishing 97.4 pounds. Her overall health improved in other ways as well. Her blood work is now pristine, she got rid of her chronic brain fog, and experienced a surge in her energy levels. She now helps others with their own journeys into low-carbohydrate diets, both on social media and on her website, where she publishes her blog at caseydurango.com. She lives in North Carolina with her lovely mate, her dog Jack, and her cat Luna. Casey Durango, it's a pleasure to welcome you to Boundless Body Radio.
And it's a pleasure to be here. And I really like your first name.
I really like your first name, and that's where we're going to start. I've got a bone to pick with you. Last week in the mail, we received a document from the trademark department that Boundless Body had been a registered trademark. Super cool. Like, we're really proud of it. Business we started in the pandemic. And I was just thinking, like, if I go back to 2017 or 18, when I started earning the reputation and people started calling me ketocasey, I should have trademarked it back then.
Oh my gosh, they call you that?
People would call me ketocasey for sure. And I was like, I didn't want to be called that. I didn't want to be associated with that guy who only did that one thing. But I ended up embracing it, and the name stuck, and I'm ketocasey and you're ketocasey. And
that's funny. Yeah. So, and congratulations on the success with your business. I think that's great.
Thank you. We're really proud of it. We really appreciate it. It's so fun to talk to you, though. Did anybody specifically call you ketocasey?
People will call me ketocasey. As a matter of fact, it's Go Keto with Casey is a lot of alliteration, but that's one reason I have that. Of course, I kind of fell into doing this in a truly organic way. It just grew. I had a different career for 30 years, a very nice, lucrative one. And when my life changed, that's the passive voice. When I changed my life, it was so profound for me. If people are looking to lose a lot of weight, and it can be discouraging, particularly if people have had experiences over many years trying to lose weight, and then they see the front of the magazine type of stories, lose 60 pounds in 5 months, or, these phenomenal stories, which, great for people who can do that. But I was just a normal loser. What happened was I'd given up on losing weight. I had tried, I was morbidly obese from my mid-20s to my mid-50s. And I had tried, I trained for and participated in 4 or 5 sprint level triathlons. And let me tell you what, hauling around an extra 100 pounds, trying to do that was rough.
Wow.
And it, because I was trying to do the move more, eat less.
Yeah, for sure.
Like we've been told. I worked with a nutritionist, followed the food pyramid. So I was getting 60% of my calories from carbohydrate and very little from fat. And that's what I thought I was supposed to do. So over the course of 6 months, in the year of the triathlon, as I call it, I lost 11 pounds, and I was sore and hungry all the time.
Wow.
And 11 pounds, actually, I'm at 115 and a half pounds off of my heaviest weight that I know of. So that was kind of my last hurrah. I thought, I'm destined. I think at some point you can feel like the universe wants you to be the fat, funny friend. That's your role in either your family or in your social circle. And so I just kind of threw up my hands. But one day I was sitting at my kitchen counter and got a phone call from one of my surviving brothers. And he said, "You're not going to believe this. What? I just got diagnosed with type 2 diabetes."
Wow.
Well, what I thought was, I just can't take it. I can't believe it took this long. That's what I can't believe. Because, have you met our family, brother? Have you met our family? And so I commiserated with him for a while, and I got off the phone and I looked out our patio door, and I was 55 at the time, and I was an unhappy, I have a great life. I have a wonderful life. I was unhappy inside my head. I have been very successful in things, but I could not seem to get in front of this weight thing. And it was demoralizing. Plus, I was feeling bad physically. Things were achy, and it was embarrassing trying to get clothes that fit. And I couldn't look professional. Well, I didn't look professional in my former professional career because it was demoralizing trying to find clothes that fit. And I was just, I could feel that, that apathy coming in.
Wow.
But I didn't want to take insulin for type 2 diabetes. That was my personal line in the sand. And, like I said, I'd given up on losing weight. So I Googled how to not take insulin for type 2 diabetes. And I came across the so-called white coat video of Dr. Eric Westman at Duke University. And I listened to it. And as I've told him before and have said in speaking engagements when he's in the audience, I don't know whether it was his calm delivery or his boyish good looks, but for some reason that message that day landed with me. And the message was, keep your carbohydrate intake 20 grams or fewer a day. Do total carbs, not net. It's not on page 4, which is part of a handout that he gives to his patients at Duke. If it's not on page 4, don't eat it. And don't eat if you're not hungry. And that's the sum total of the protocol as I learned it and practiced it. So I thought, well, I can be kept alive for the next 30, 35, 40 years. But feeling this way, I just don't know that I want to. So I'm going to lay off the carbs. I'm going to do it. I've known since 1977 that low carb worked for me. I was a sophomore in college, got the the Atkins diet revolution. I wanted to lose 12 or 13 pounds I had put on when I got to college, lost the weight, threw the book away. I knew low carb worked, but it was just difficult in the early 80s because everything was low fat and Atkins is going to kill you. And then low fat, move more, eat less. So even though I knew it worked, I was at the point where I really wanted it to work to get my blood sugar down. And that was the point of laying off the carbs.
Wow.
So the next time I put food in my mouth, I laid off the carbs. I mean, like that day, the next time I ate. And I just did it again the next time I ate. And then again. And within about 2 weeks, I realized my joint pain, that I had joint pain throughout my body, which one would expect. I'm not a very tall person. I'm 5'1". So I was carrying a lot of weight on that frame. And of course I was sore because you look at you, you're a fat thing and you're carrying all that weight around. Of course you're sore, but I never understood how my knuckles could be sore. I don't walk on my hands. My joint pain resolved. My energy level was much better. I was losing some weight. I am a normal, gradual loser. I did not lose 60 pounds in 5 weeks. The first year I lost 47 pounds and I was thrilled. That is on average less than a pound a week. And I don't call that being a slow loser. I felt so much better. But people were noticing the weight loss and then they would say, how are you doing it? I say, I'm just doing the opposite of what my doctor told me to do. As a matter of fact, that's what I told my doctor when I went back for my checkup the next year. How did you lose this 25 pounds? I said, by doing the opposite of what you told me to do last year. Because she had noted in my chart, Casey continues to struggle with her weight, which was accurate. And she also wrote, I continue to suggest a low-fat diet and more exercise. So to her credit, when I said, by doing the opposite of what you told me to do, she listened. She didn't get all up in arms, or she didn't need to swoon, worried about that I'm going to kill myself. But anyway, people would ask me, friends would ask me, I would explain it. And it's actually the mother of my daughter-in-law, one of my daughters-in-law. We were having lunch one day and she was asking me about it. She's a petite person, but she had issues. You can be thin and not well. And her doctor had actually recommended to her to lay off the carbs. I'll give it a try. And then she was saying, but that's what you do, right, Casey? Yes, I am. So I explained my understanding of why it worked. And she said, you just explained that better than my doctor did. I said, well, Lauren, come on. I had 45 minutes to do it. Plus I've had a glass of wine. So she said, no, you should make videos about this. And I think I actually laughed at her because when you're a very large person, I was a small, large person. When you're very overweight, cameras, photos, certainly not videos, you don't want any of that in your life. I had been very strategic over the years, avoiding anything that would be a photographic or videographic representation of me. They said, no, seriously, you should. You could do that. You could do that. Well, I thought about it and I was really so intrigued by the changes that were coming over me. I started to feel better about myself in general. I was happier. I regained the happy, optimistic person I had been before.
Wow.
I had over the decades, I just become glum. I'm gregarious, so I could fake it pretty well. But I had chronic clinical depression, which I think for me, I'm convinced that it was actually physiological. I think it was the insulin, zapping, getting zaps of insulin and glucose spikes and drops and all this. And I think my body chemistry was just all out of whack. So I made a couple of videos, which I tried hard not to look at. Making videos, the worst part is having to edit them because then you have to look at yourself and you have to hear yourself. So I would try to get them done in one take.
Nice.
Just do it and post it because I don't want to see it or hear it. And that is kind of what happened, that I was still in my other career. And I realized after a few months, I really I felt like I was much more helpful to people, that I had a bigger message than what I was doing before. And so that's where Go Keto with Casey came. And I changed my blog over from the previous topic of my former career and just changed it to writing about my understanding, my experience with this. And I grew to have some coaching because frankly, the protocol is easy. I mean, it's simple rather, excuse me. It's simple. Lay off the carbs, just lay off the starches. Don't eat if you're not hungry, which should be a basic thing anyway. But that, because it's simple, does not necessarily mean it's easy. So what I tend to talk to people about, and I have a private support group on Patreon, which is a wonderful group of people. I've often said that people don't pledge to get access to me in that group. They get access to each other. We have video group sessions. We have live streams on Crowdcast. I do 20 videos a month that I do for my kitchen counter at the suggestions of the patrons. And then I have public content as well on a YouTube channel, Go Keto with Casey, and then my blog, which is caseydurango.com. So, and I have a Facebook group, but frankly, I'm not the biggest fan of Facebook, but you can hardly escape it.
It's not as bad as Twitter. No. Twitter's way worse.
Oh gosh, such angry. You know what's getting bad is Nextdoor. The Nextdoor app. Have you read some of the things on this hyperlocal social media thing?
No, I've never heard of that.
Oh my gosh, it's hyperlocal. So I think they're gonna have an IPO soon. But so you plug in your neighborhood. And then other people from your neighborhood, and they can post. And it's supposed to be things like who needs a babysitter, and oh, my cat got out, and then it gets ugly. You find out way more than you ever wanted to know about the people that live down the street from you.
Wow, that's so funny.
The angriness comes out. But anyway, that's okay. So that's what I do. I talk to people, and I try to, as I said, in a very simple way, explain what I do, why I did it, and how I understand that it works. And it has worked for me.
That's amazing.
I started on January 8th, 2014. So I've been doing this. People say it's not sustainable. The people who say that are the ones that can't sustain it because they don't, they say, well, I'm going to, I'll take my insulin, but I am not passing on the chocolate brownies.
Yeah, right.
So there's a mindset there to a degree. But I've been in ketosis, I would say, the whole time. To my knowledge, I've not been out of ketosis. And it has gotten, at first it was like a kid not in a candy store, but like a kid in a bacon and ranch dressing store. You could just eat, just lay off the carbs. Quickly, it came to the point where I simply couldn't eat that much food anymore because if you follow it correctly, as I'm sure you know, your appetite is suppressed.
Sure.
And so the next thing is don't eat just because you always eat at this time. And no, breakfast is not the most important meal of the day, at least not for me.
Thank you.
And so we know who came up with that is Dr. Kellogg. Seriously.
Yep.
Have you ever seen the movie The Road to Wellville?
No, I haven't.
Okay, put it on your list. It is pretty gruesome. I'm not gruesome, very strange, and it's based on a true story about the Kellogg brothers.
Wow.
Anyway.
Their story,
wackadoo.
Yeah, their story is so interesting, and the Seventh-day Adventists and Eileen White and the visions and like the reason why cereal was invented. I had to explain this to my client last week. He didn't know anything about this. Like, do you even know why we have cereal? It's insane. You can't make this stuff up. It's crazy. So I want to go, I would love to go back to something that you said earlier. And for the listener, I think this could get easily passed over, but I really want to highlight it because it's really important. I think we can look at your journey and we can look and see that, wow, you're doing all of this work on all these different platforms. You've lost over 100 pounds. You've kept it off for 7 years. You've made yourself super healthy. And that's a lot to accomplish. I think a lot of people might see everything that you've done and think like, wow, like I could never get there. I could never do all of that. And they don't realize that this is a journey that you have to keep up with every single day. And you mentioned that you started with one meal, and that meal was right now. And the thing you were going to do is lay off the carbs. Like that is something that you can always do. I wonder if you can comment a little bit about the importance, like you mentioned, like mindset, like keeping everything present and just focusing on right now. What can I do right now and start now? Not tomorrow, not next Monday, not July 2nd, or January 2nd, but like right now.
That is actually key. And I have never been in a 12-step program, but I think it's some of the tools that 12-step programs use are brilliant. One of them being, you don't tell yourself you're never going to have another drink. You say, I may have a drink tomorrow, but I'm not having a drink today. And what I've done myself, and what this was, for me, it was more along the lines of don't eat if you're not hungry, which to me is the biggest challenge because we are so habitual. We've become conditioned to eating, we're told eat every 2.5 hours. Please. So, what's the old saying? A journey of 1,000 miles starts with one step.
That's right.
You've got to take the first step. I used to tell myself, like I said, I knew that low carb worked for me, but I would actually tell myself in my brain and out loud, well, I know it works, but there is no way I can go the rest of my life without eating tortilla chips.
Yeah. I
love tortilla chips. And of course, when you tell yourself you can't do something, you're kind of sealing the deal for yourself. If you tell yourself you can't, you probably won't. So I just said the next time I eat, I'm going to lay off the carbs. And then that took all of that future decision-making off the table. I wasn't, like you said, I wasn't worried about what's going to happen next Monday. If you have children and if you're thinking about having a child and someone says, well, okay, you're going to have a child, and you are going to change 12,000 diapers, you would say, I'm not having a child then because I cannot imagine changing 12,000 diapers. No, you do it one poopy diaper at a time, right? That's how you do it. If you had to think about all the stuff you have to do, we'd never get out of bed in the morning.
Yep.
So it is a challenge for many of the people with whom I speak is overcoming our own internal down talk. We frame things so often in our thoughts in the negative. Even people say, in our group will say, okay, well, I've only lost 6 pounds in the last 3 weeks. And I say, okay, first of all, around Go Keto with Casey, we eliminate the word only when we're talking about weight loss. You lost 6 pounds in 3 weeks because the opposite, you wouldn't say, oh, I only put on 6 pounds in 3 weeks. You claim the victory. And then very often, particularly women, I will say, maybe somebody says, wow, you look like you've lost weight. Oh, yes, thank you. I've lost 14 pounds. I've got a long way to go. I know. No. Stop. Because we minimize our own accomplishments. And that that, no pun intended, feeds on itself. We talk to ourselves in a way we would never talk to someone else. We would never tell our friend, our coworker, our niece, our kids, our spouse, well, you only accomplished this, and you probably will never really get it all the way done. You're probably going to fail at this one too. Well, you might say that if you're a really mean person, but we wouldn't say that to someone else, but we tell that to ourselves. I never stick to anything. I can never get through the weekend. So what do? If you're a person who on Friday evening, you've done great all week, and then Friday evening's a challenge, what do you have to do? Maybe you need to start planning for that on Wednesday. You start saying, okay, this Friday, when I get home from work or whatever it is, instead of going in, kicking off my shoes, throwing the keys on the desk, and then going to the cabinet and getting out some Chips Ahoy, and you have to tell yourself in advance, right? I'm going to get in, kick off my shoes, throw the keys on the table. I'm going to go change my clothes so I'm not in my work gear. And then I am going to, then you tell yourself something else you're going to do. I'm going to go through the mail carefully, and then I'm going to shred up, just do something other than the Chips Ahoy. But you have to prepare for that. You know, the old saying is, we don't drown because we can't swim. We drown because we panic. And if you find yourself at a wedding and you're trying to lay off the carbs, if you find yourself in a pandemic and you're trying to lay off the carbs, being prepared is key, because we kind of panic. And people say, oh my God, before I knew it, I'd eaten an entire bag of Cheetos.
Yep.
So you have to, and it does take some effort. And we have to talk, we have to be kinder to ourselves. We have to be firmer with ourselves. I actually just designed a mug, and it's on my Teespring site that you can see under my YouTube videos. And it reads, lay off the carbs, lay off the excuses.
I saw that. I love it.
And then on the back, it has a little silly thing of me. And this is a thing I do tell people, if I can do this, you can do this. I promise, because I was morbidly obese. I was postmenopausal. I was in my mid-50s. I had given up. If I can make that switch, anyone can make the switch. And you probably have heard many great success stories. I have heard them. There's a gentleman that shows up on, I do a YouTube live stream most Saturdays at noon Eastern. And he's lost like 274 pounds.
Wow.
It's amazing. And he's done it with keto, no surgery. And, I'm going to recommend to people, if they're trying this, if a food product has the word keto on it, it's not. And, there's no food you can eat that will zap you into ketosis. It's not the presence of the fat that gets you there. It's the absence of the carbs. But there's a lot of money to be made these days.
Yeah.
And it's disappointing, I'll have to say, to see some of the shenanigans that are going on. But, people like you that are just giving good advice and support and doing the good work, that's what we have to hang on to. And the hucksters are going to, hopefully they'll move on to another scheme in a while. Hopefully the word keto will get overused and something else will come in. Paleo came in last time.
Seriously. We've talked about on the show, Slim Fast Keto has some product they were selling for $10 at the store. The total weight of all of the things contained in that package, it was like 6 servings. The total weight was less than 3 ounces.
Oh, for heaven's sake.
It needs like a weight to like hold it down. It's just going to float off into outer space like a balloon. Like, how for $10? Like, give me a break. Anything less than 3 ounces would fit your macros. If that's what you're looking for. There's nothing there. It's all air.
That's what Dr. Westman says. You can make anything low carb. Just break it in enough pieces.
Exactly. I love that. Wow. I'm so glad you mentioned the self-talk. One of the people that I follow in the health world that I really love is Peter Attia. And he talked about his
Yes.
tendency to do the same thing. And he does a lot of like really high performing activities like drive a Formula One simulator, archery, and all those things require a high set of skill. They're high consequence. He needs to be fully present for them. And he would realize over time, like, his self-talk, like if he wasn't doing well in one of those things, like you're the worst, you suck, you'll never be good at this. And he had to learn that he needed to externalize things a little bit and realize that, there is not another human on this planet that I would talk to in that way. And I'm talking to myself that way, consciously or subconsciously, all the time. And it's crazy. And one of the things that really helped me to understand that is to, next time you're worried about something or next time you feel like you're not doing a very good job, write a letter to yourself, but don't do it in the first person. Do it in the third person. Call yourself Casey. In both of our cases, that works. and say like, hey, listen, like you didn't do this perfectly. This part was out of your control. Like, don't worry so much about it and be really kind to yourself and talk to yourself the way you would talk to any other human being. It's such a helpful exercise.
It is, and it is so deeply ingrained in us. These negative words that we may not even think until we think about it. We may not feel that they're negative until you really think, there's no really other way to interpret when you call yourself a failure other than that's a negative. That we become almost numb to our own self-negativity. And it's not selfish to want to feel better about yourself. It's not, there's one woman with whom I've been speaking and, and in truth, a lot of people have a lot of life experiences that were awful. And it takes overcoming the memories of those and everything else. But when you're kind of told either explicitly or implicitly that, if you say something nice about yourself, that's bragging, and that is just not done. Well, who made up that rule?
Yeah, right.
I mean, if you're a malignant narcissist, you're going to say what you want to say anyway. But the rest of us, it's good to feel good about yourself. One of the reasons, Casey, I made this change from one career to the other, I recognized in myself the difference in how I held myself, how I felt, my energy level. Obviously, physically, I felt better. My self-confidence came back in a big way. And I looked back over the previous 30 years, and not 100%. I mean, again, I have a great life, great children who are all long off the payroll and committed relationships, and we've got a couple of granddaughters. Everything's great. But I just started absenting myself from my own life. Just bit by bit, I would not join in on certain things. If I accepted an invitation to a party, I would come up with a reason at the last minute not to go, usually because I didn't have any clothes to wear that I felt good about. There are no photographs of me with my children.
Wow.
Well, I take that back. There was one photograph I saw at my daughter's wedding, which I, again, strategically tried to stay away from the photographer. We didn't have formal photography. It was a photojournalist. And I saw one. I accidentally got one, and it sent me reeling. It was terrible. But I realized, think of all the things I maybe could have done better. I could have been more involved. And then I thought about other people who, the entrepreneurship, the creativity, the volunteerism, the just being a part of a community that people bit by bit by bit, they subtract themselves. They don't put themselves up for that promotion. They don't go to serve a meal to the homeless because they're afraid that they're going to look so fat next to the homeless people. I don't know. These things we tell ourselves. And I thought, if I can just help somebody see that I was there, that a change could be made, and if people can feel better about themselves and be contributing members to their own families and their communities. If, Talmud says, I'm changing the gender here, she who saves one soul is said to have saved the world. And I certainly don't think I'm saving souls, But if I can get one person to come out of their hovel, a mental hovel, where they're hidden themselves away because they thought they couldn't do it. And then they say, wait a minute, she did it. And she was not in her 20s when she did it. Then that's a good result for me.
That's amazing. That is so beautifully said. And I'm so glad you went there with that. We could not agree more on that. I will say when I went from, kind of a normal like paleo to keto, I experienced it. And I definitely experienced it when I went a little bit more strict, from like a keto to kind of like a more carnivore style diet. And same with my wife. In this flow of energy that feels like it's been dammed up your entire life, you discover that it's there. Your mental clarity, your ability to feel emotion, express emotion, your ability to connect with the earth and with animals and with birds, and just you live in this state of almost like gratitude and like bliss. And it's not always like the happiest all the time, but you realize that what life should be when you get rid of all the BS, all this other stuff, and you start eating the proper foods. This energy is your birthright that flows freely to you for as long as you are alive. It's amazing. It's absolutely such a beautiful thing. And you're right. Like, how many people feel hopeless? They feel helpless. They don't know how to get there, and they don't get to experience that. And you're right. It is really sad. And so that's part of why I love what you chose to do and make this your message. And, if a few people hear this and get some benefit and experience that, you're right. That's worth all of it. That's everything.
And I've had contact with too many people who are saying just that, and then they're influencing the people around them. Their children, some of them are grown children who are, my daughter's lost 60 pounds now, and she went and she put in for a raise, and she's now running the operating room. She was a nurse, and now she's running the operating room. She never would have asked for that raise before. They're younger children, they're college age children, their parents, they're influencing people. There is one woman who was bedbound. She was in her 60s when she started, early 60s. She was bedbound. And then I saw her, she came to a meeting, in real life meeting, and she was in a wheelchair. And then a couple of months later, she was on a walker. And then a few months later, she was walking. And all it was food.
Wow.
It's all it was. And I love what you said about it does sound kind of tree huggery, but it's true. You feel better. And I am in a state of grace right now. I feel like, I mean, like, I'm so grateful. And another thing is my anxiety level is way down. Again, I attribute a lot of this to just my body physiology is doing what it was designed to do. There's a metaphor. I keep trying to come up with a good one. I have to work on it. So over the last few years here, we live in a residential neighborhood in the middle of an old growth forest. And we had, like everybody else, we had turf, we had grass, and azaleas and boxwoods. Well, I'm in central North Carolina where the soil is clay. So what you do is you try to get the grass to grow, and then you've got to put fertilizer on it. Then you've got to put weed eater on it. Then you've got to aerate it. Then you've got to mow it, and then you've got to edge it, and you got to leaf blow it, all to try to make something grow in soil that the soil doesn't want it to be there, and that grass does not want to be in the clay. We're trying to squeeze something that's just not the way it's supposed to be. So we pulled up all the turf. And our older son is a landscape designer and horticulturist. So we have everything planted, front and back gardens now are native plants. Most of them are wildflowers, which are actually herbs. And the pollinators love it. We don't have weeds. We do not have to fertilize. We do not have to mow or edge or leaf blow. And it's wall to wall, front to back, covered in something alive, growing. And it's all because we planted plants where they wanted to be planted, and the soil wants to host those plants. It's the opposite of turf grass. Turf grass is great for Northern Ireland because that's where it grows. But here, we in our bodies I think of that metaphor as, so we've been trying over decades to feed our bodies with food our bodies doesn't want, and it's not nutritious. So what do? We start taking a boatload of supplements to try to replace the nutrients we're not getting in the food. Then we get, acid reflux because we're eating food our body doesn't want. So we have to take something for that. And then we start taking, we have ulcerative colitis, or you have asthma. These are all things that we're taking to try to overcome the fact that we're feeding our bodies food that our bodies don't want. If we just get out of nature's way, it generally figures it out.
That is so well said. I love that. That's great. Wow, that's amazing. I love the metaphor. I hope you keep that one. That's something really helpful to see. I think, we're so used to, what's the next workout program? What's the next supplement? What's the next meal plan? And more. And people get really surprised to learn. It's like you said earlier, it maybe isn't easy, but it is very simple. It's not very many things that you have to eat that you will feel really good. And all of these systems inside your body, it's one system. They will all self-regulate, and you're going to feel so much better in so many different ways. I also want to make a comment too. You mentioned tortilla chips, which I haven't had tortilla chips in a few years. The last time I had them, I was astounded at how quickly I got to the bottom of the bag. Holy smokes. I think a lot of people, again, when they're not thinking to be in the present, they're thinking they have to be on some diet for the rest of their lives and they can never have a tortilla chip. I don't think they also take into account that your taste buds are going to change and your desire for that tortilla chip is going to wane. I'm assuming that if I picked you up and we drove over to the tortilla chip factory, you and I could probably walk through the entire factory front to back and not eat a single chip. Like you could be swimming in tortilla chips and not want one. Is that the case?
That is 100% true. As a matter of fact, because there really was a big deal about these tortilla chips. We would buy them, the big, giant abuelita tortilla chips from Costco. We'd buy 5 bags at a time. And then, of course, going to a Mexican restaurant, we would go through 3 or 4 baskets of tortilla chips. So, and I thought, I can't give those up. I would tell myself I can't go the rest of my life without eating one. Honest to goodness, I've not had a tortilla chip since long before January 8th, 2014, whenever that was. And when we have still gone to Mexican restaurants, we bring pork rinds, but they could put a basket of gravel, and I would have no more interest in that basket of gravel than I would in a basket of tortilla chips.
Yes.
No, I got that backwards. I would have no more interest in the basket of tortilla chips than a basket of gravel. Yes, you lose, I wrote a blog post a while ago, people say, well, what do I do with cravings? I say, well, don't feed it. Because, that's what we did with the stray cat 17 years ago that still lives in our side yard.
That's funny.
If you feed a stray cat, it keeps coming back. Same thing with the craving. Craving is not a life emergency. You're not going to pass out, and it will pass. And then they go away. People think I cannot go. I have to have fruit. Well, maybe this is not the way to eat for you because it's not for everybody. I have a thing. People say, well, yes, but whatever. Yes, but I really think I need fruit. Well, you don't really need it, but because it's sugar. Yes, but I don't have a gallbladder. Well, that's okay too, because a lot of people without a gallbladder. Yes, but I'm postmenopausal. When they get to the third yes, but, I say, this may not be for you right now. Maybe revisit it, because I think a lot of us look for reasons we can't do whatever it is, because we don't really want to do it yet. We really don't. We're not at that point. And for everyone, the line in the sand can be different. For some people, it's, I am not about to have to wear a size 3X shirt. I've been wearing 2Xs, but a 3X is a step too far. For some people, it's a number on a scale, which it would be great if we stopped weighing ourselves.
Agreed.
For other people, it's medical. For me, it was, I didn't want to take insulin for type 2 diabetes. So if we stop trying to figure out all the reasons it won't work for us, right there is a great change of mindset.
I love that. I love the piece about the motivation. One of my favorite quotes is, when pain increases, hearing improves. And changing the diet seems like it can be really hard. You're going to sacrifice a few things. I would argue that you really don't, but it is a change and it's difficult. And if life doesn't suck bad enough for you right now to make a change, you probably will not do that. But you're right. If you continue down these paths, you'll get to that specific place and it's going to suck bad enough. And then you're going to have some hard questions for yourself on what you want to do, how you're going to change, because now it's like forced on you. You are so lucky you get to live where you live. By so many of my good friends, like Amy and Cory Conklin, I believe lives out in North Carolina. And I know you've been on his show. He's been on our show. We've had Amy on twice. Amy Berger is the queen of making things simple. And you two could be like carbon copies of each other. You guys just jive so well. Can you, first of all, tell us what that relationship means to you, the two of you being such great friends? And then can you tell us a few tips and tricks on how to make things very simple? Again, maybe it's not like easy, especially in the beginning, but there's simple things that you can do.
Yeah, I'm very happy to have become friends with Amy. And she and I were both wary of each other, to tell you the truth, before we actually met. And only because I don't know why we were, I don't know, but we hit it off from the first minute. And she's great. I don't think she's trademarked it yet, but she keeps threatening to trademark the phrase keto without the crazy.
Yeah, I love it.
It is simple. And honest to goodness, keep your carbs 20 grams or fewer a day total, not net. And I, if it's not on page 4, don't eat it. But I always tell people, you don't even need a food list. It's fatty sources of protein, some full fat dairy, if you can tolerate it, in limited amounts, and non-starchy vegetables and leafy greens in limited amounts. But you don't even need to eat those. The way I keep it simple is I introduced logic into my life. We can sometimes become illogical. I think this is illogical. Having carb up days. So this is the latest thing. Have a carb up day so that you don't become carb intolerant. Okay, now that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard, because that's illogical. Dude, I'm already carb intolerant. That's the whole problem. If I consume something that makes me sick and I cut it out and I get better, where's the logic in consuming it again? So we become illogical. If we think about logic, we really do complicate things, because we'll say, well, in my culture, I'm Italian. My family is Italian, or my family is German, or my so-and-so, and we are, the food is love and the food is carbs. Every culture, other than the Inuit and the Maasai, have carbs. And every culture, everyone, my husband is from Colombia, South America. Rice, beans, patacones, papas, yuca. This is the staple, right? He does this not because he needed to lose weight, but because he saw the change in me and the health benefits. Every culture, I'm from the South, and we have a chain of restaurants called Biscuitville, and the biscuits are humongous. So every part of the country, every part of the world thinks that, they corner the market on carby foods. Come on, that's illogical. We have eyeballs. And I always say, food is not love. Love is love. Food is fuel. That sounds harsh, but it's true. Food is not sport. It should not be entertainment. Food is not our best friend. If food is your best friend, you definitely need to get out more. But try not to overthink it. We don't overthink. Well, I guess we can. We can overthink trying to get a good night's sleep. It can be a challenge. But we don't perseverate over it, right? We don't have to overthink. Well, now I'm going to take it back, because I think a lot of us do overthink almost everything. Just, it should be so basic. Don't eat if you're not hungry. We start with our babies. We try to, if you're breastfeeding, you don't know how much they eat. People who give a bottle, they're going to get those 2 ounces of formula in that baby, no matter what. But the baby says, I don't want it. No, you're going to have the 2 ounces. So this starts, I've gotten way off on a tangent here. I don't even know what point I was trying to make. So sorry about that.
No, it's great.
Squirrel. No, and here's another thing. Honestly, I know you've seen this. There are forces out there that they want it to seem complicated so they can sell you something to make it simple.
Mm-hmm.
And that is uncool. I got no problem with people making a living. And if nobody sells, nobody works. I get that. But not when it comes to people's health.
Yeah.
Not when people are struggling so hard. And then you try to sell them stuff that will be not only not helpful, but counterproductive. That's the complicated stuff. Mm. The easy thing is how to grill a steak or a burger or have an Italian sausage and just lay off the carbs. It's just not that complicated.
Mm. Yeah, I love that. I love that message. I love that tangent. It was really good. I think about like right now where I am just outside of Salt Lake City, I think about my entire neighborhood, all of the people around me. I know of 2 trees that grow fruit. And they grow apricots. And right now, these apricots are ripe and they're falling on the ground. And every time I walk by, if I'm heading to a client's house, if one is falling on the ground, I drop down and pick one up and have one to eat. So sorry to my neighbor who I'm eating all your apricots. It's nice. They taste good. They're not overly sweet. They're definitely a lot different than what you get at a store. But the issue that I see there is like these apricots are going to be here for like a week or 2, maybe. They're not available all day, every day, 365 days out of the year, the way other people are consuming them. So I don't think either one of us are saying like carbohydrates are bad. They're just not necessary. And you've probably spent most of your life consuming way too many of them to begin with. Let's go to the more strict side. Let's get them out. And yeah, you're right. Think of the foods that you just named: burgers, steaks, eggs, like delicious foods that you really like. Once you know how to prepare them, you never get sick of them. They taste amazing.
They do. And I've had more than one person ask me, now that you've lost the weight, will you go back to eating regular food? Okay. I do eat regular food. You know what's not regular food? Lay's potato chips, Pringles, candy bars. They're not even food adjacent. Shouldn't even qualify as food. They're no nutritional value. A little seasonal fruit that comes your way, absolutely. You're right. Back in the day, not even that long ago, Christmas time, kids would get an apple and an orange in their stocking because it was so rare. That was like a super treat. Unless you lived around the equator, you just weren't getting fruit very much.
That's
but
right.
Now, here's a thing. So I went into the Harris Teeter, which is a grocery store here, the other day. They have, so imagine a layer cake, a 5-layer cake, and it's in plastic, but it's half the cake. They've cut it in half, and they've positioned it so you can see all the layers, all different colors, some colors that are not found in nature. They've used a lot of food coloring. They have them lined up at tables as you walk in and at the checkout counters. So it's bad enough you've got the candy bar at the checkout counter, right, to impulse buy. Now they have cakes, large cakes. Cakes used to be used to celebrate a big occasion like someone's birthday because a lot of people didn't make it for another year, or a wedding because that was a big deal. But the flour and the sugar and everything were very expensive and hard to come by. So it was truly a celebration. When you can get a cake at the gas station, it's not that special a thing anymore. And again, logically, there's no nutrition in it. So if we kind of flip over, going back to my front yard metaphor, if I'm trying to just grow plants that want to grow there and I don't have to spend a fortune, pruning them and being crazy with them, plus the pollinators are coming back, then if I just be logical, plant things that want to live there and the soil can host, as opposed to eat food that your body doesn't want, how are we going to make that work?
Yeah.
We're not going to. Well, we haven't made it work. And we're getting fatter and sicker. And diabetes is no joke. Type 2 diabetes is no joke. I've shared this many times. That day in 2014, when I was pondering myself, And I said, I don't want to take insulin for type 2 diabetes. And this is no secret. I've been diagnosed and treated for cancer 3 times in my life. The first when I was 29, 30, pregnant with our third child.
Wow.
And
Crazy.
then twice more. Here's the thing. I actually had this thought that day. I somehow can reconcile that I may have to tell my loved ones that I might just die of cancer because apparently, that's, I pick it up like a tick. But I couldn't see telling them that I might lose a foot or a kidney or my eyesight to type 2 diabetes. And as you know, that is what lays ahead for people who have, just don't take any measures to try to get their blood sugar under control.
Yep.
And it's all inflammation, and you just have no idea how much better you feel. So many people have told me that one of the first things, it's like the canary in the coal mine, when they realize that their joint pain has resolved in a quickness. Like I said, for me, I think it was 3 weeks, something like that. It's a wonder. People come off so many medications.
Yeah.
And it's because start feeding yourself the way your body wants.
Wow. It's so well explained. And you're right. Like all these implications we think are totally separate things, but they all come from the one thing. I'll give the example of if you took your car that wasn't working well over to the mechanic and the mechanic said, okay, like, what are you putting in the engine? And you said corn oil. The mechanic would say oh, well, that's not what you're supposed to put in your car. Don't do that. And you might answer, well, I only do it on Tuesdays and Saturdays. And the mechanic might say, I don't care. It's not, don't do that. You can't do that. And you might say well, it's organic. And the mechanic's like, it doesn't matter. This isn't the right thing for the car. It's the same with the food. This is not the right food that you should eat. If you have it every now and again, I don't know, is it going to go well or not well? It doesn't matter. It doesn't change the answer that this is not the right food to consume. And some of it might be bad, a lot of it might be bad, but it's not the right thing. And by starting with those things that you mentioned, again, they're so satisfying. The meats, the eggs, vegetables, if you like all of those things can be so satisfying. They taste really good. They don't need a lot of seasonings oftentimes. I so much love that. And by eating that way, you can bypass all of those other things that you mentioned, which you're right, is affecting everybody now and just getting worse and worse. It's crazy. Mm-hmm. Oh, wow. Tell us a little bit about what you're working for the future.
Well, I'm doing more of the same, more of what I'm doing. My Patreon group is very dear to me and is, I do something with them essentially every day. And I really like it. It's very gratifying. I'm doing some writing, but we'll see what happens with that. And what I'm not doing is I'm not writing a cookbook. I'm not providing meal plans. What the world does not need is one more cookbook with the word keto in it. Keto soups. How do you make an entire cookbook about soups that are keto? I don't know how people do that.
That's a great question. You're asking somebody who eats 3 or 4 things on rotation all the time and is totally happy with it.
So I'm doing some just personal writing, and like I said, we'll see what comes with that. And I do, I have, and I don't know if you're aware, Dr. Westman has been hosting what's called the Durham Support Group meeting for, I think, over 10 years. And it's always been in person, of course. And he just does it the first Tuesday of the month. And one thing led to another. And he went from being this guy I was seeing on this video to friends. Then I started moderating the meetings with them at the Durham Hilton, and then COVID. So now they are on the first Tuesday of the month on Crowdcast. So I host that, and he's there for an hour and a half. You should sign up and come on and ask some questions or put a link to your stuff. And he's great. He just answers questions, and he's the world authority on the clinical implementation of, a low carb diet for treating obesity and type 2 diabetes. So that's the first Tuesday of the month. The second Monday of the month, I've just started back up in real life, Go Keto with Casey meetups here in Greensboro at a wine shop. That's always a lot of fun. Mondays are half price wine. And the third Wednesday of the month, Amy Berger and I have Wednesday Wine Day. We were doing this before COVID. That's also on Crowdcast. So that's the third. That'll be this week, day after tomorrow, when Amy and I will do it. So I'm just doing that and try to. But I'll tell you what I'm not doing is I'm not spending all day, every day, trolling videos about keto, or I just don't, because I made a decision. I mean, I want to say as informed as possible. Absolutely. But I made this change so that I could feel better and re-enter my life. And what my life does not need to be is following 50 separate YouTube channels about how to do keto. I recommend people step away from the glowing screens, including stepping away from listening to me. It's the analogy I use is that there's a trick to hard cooking an egg, particularly a fresh egg, and we do have chicken, so we have fresh eggs, to being able to hard cook it and then peel it easily so the peel just comes straight off. There's a way to do it. I've learned how to do it. I don't need to watch any more videos about how to hard cook an egg and easily peel it. I only need to get that information so much. So I recommend people, instead of just, looking at pictures of food, but the point is to get out, put your feet in the dirt, look at the bees, take a walk, talk to a neighbor, enter your life. Because although if I wasn't doing what I do, Go Keto with Casey thing, I don't think I'd think about it twice. In my day, I would just be living my life. And that's where we really need to get is figure out what works for us, eat the food that our body wants us to eat, feel better, be healthier, and then live your life.
Yes. Boy, I love that. I was finding, especially this last year, that I was getting really sucked into a lot of different news outlets and a lot of, commotion. And I just found that maybe stuff is going on in the world, but every time I open my front door and I go walk in my neighborhood, that robin doesn't care. Those ducks don't care. Mm-hmm. The cats that come out and say hi from whatever house they're hanging out at, they don't care. Like, life is still happening and there's so much beauty and love and grace all over the place. I think that's a really wonderful message. Learn the skills that you need, make this as simple as possible. And then go live your life and experience all the amazing wonder and joy that is out there for us. I think I know how you're going to answer this question, but I would like to ask, what is one simple tip you would like to leave with a listener? And let's say it's maybe something you would have liked to have said to yourself when you started this in 2014. What is one thing you'd want her to know?
Oh, that is a good question. Gosh, that is really hard because I could not have predicted any of this. I have told people that if I knew then what I know now, that this was going to work. And when I say this, getting healthier, but my blood sugar, by the way, is perfect. It's like my average is 72. My A1C is 4.3, I think. My HDL is 125 and my triglycerides, were 51 or 49 or something.
Amazing.
It is amazing. And it's just from the food, right? And I was on the verge of being everything bad, but I didn't know it was going to work. I would have probably made little video diaries, which I would never have looked at them, right? I mean, because, can't look at myself. Because I can't now really imagine how I was then, because there's no photographic evidence. But there's a little bit. There's a few photos on my blog. But I would have probably made little video diaries just for myself. I would have taken photos of myself. I would have taken measurements, and I would have gotten a DEXA scan. And I would have gotten the DEXA scan, throughout the process to see, because my body composition has definitely changed. Not only is there's less fat, but there's more lean. My tagline around Go Keto with Casey is, and I just did a video about this one, is because people say, did you exercise? I said, well, I don't exercise. I just dress like I do. But actually because, exercise is not effective for fat loss. But I have over the last several months just incorporated using a total gym. and the resistance training. Because, I'm a woman of a certain age. I want bone density. I want a good, strong core. And I'm not burning fat using the Total Gym, but I've got some pretty impressive arms. If we ever meet in person, I will show you my arms.
Please.
Not bad for an old lady. And I'm not an old lady. I'm just, I'm youthful. But I don't know what I would tell myself other than, I don't know, this felt different for me from almost the jump. About a month in, I thought something's different. This is different, because it was, I can do this. I can do this, and I can do this almost easily. And it sounds presumptuous to say that, but again, I was eating such delicious food that I'd been depriving myself of for years, right? Or thought I should deprive myself of bacon and eggs with the yolks and chicken with the skin. Ooh, isn't the skin the best
so
part?
Good. Best part.
Best part. Ribeyes. Sour cream. Sour cream, anyone? So when I was first losing weight and people say, wow, have you lost weight? Oh, yes, I have. Thank you. And it was, I was losing 1/10 of a pound at a time. But when it got to be 25 pounds, people were noticing. Oh, you must be so proud of yourself. I just know how hard that must have been. And I say, I would love to take the credit, but I've got to be honest, this has been the easiest thing I've ever done. And if, it just was, because again, it was like all systems were firing the way they're supposed to, because I was no longer putting corn oil in my car. I was putting the right fuel in, which is exactly for me. Now, there are many paths that lead to the same destination. For me, this was the path that worked.
That's amazing. Wow. Well, we started this conversation with me thinking I was going to have our legal team come after you and own the name ketocasey. And now I think I feel like I'm just so happy that there's at least 2 of us out there that are helping to share this message. And it's so cool what you've done and decided to make it a part of your life. And again, you're right. Like, you could just use this information for yourself and live an amazing life, but you're choosing to share it, which I think is just so amazing and wonderful, and such a cool example that yes, you can start at any time to any degree you like, that you want to feel better. This will work for you. Try this. It's really amazing. You do such a great job of making this really simple to understand. Casey Durango, where again should we send people who want to connect with you and want to join some of those amazing groups you're running?
Okie dokie. Well, my blog is at caseydurango.com. That's CASEYDURANGO.com. And my YouTube channel is Go Keto with Casey. And I have a Facebook page, Go Keto with Casey. And I have a Patreon group, which is a private group. And that's at patreon.com/ guess what? Go Keto with Casey. And I'm glad you're not going to sick your legal team on me. Let me tell you what I think. I think there are enough people who need help in the world for there to be at least 2 ketocaseys. There's enough. There's enough. So we will each do our things. And this has been so great talking with you.
It's been so much fun to talk with you.
Yes, indeed. And I will tell Amy that we chatted. And
please, yeah, definitely. We've had Eric Westman on the show too. He has to be as kind as he looks, right? Like, he just seems like such a wonderful human. He's
like freakishly calm and patient, and he's just I think I referred to him as preternaturally calm. He liked that a lot.
That's awesome.
Yeah, well, great, and good luck, and keep up your good work.
Well, thank you so much. We want you to keep up your good work and sharing your wonderful message with the world. It really helps, and we're so grateful for you and for everything that you've done and for taking the time to appear on our show. So, Casey Durango, thank you so very much for having our little chat. This has been great.
Okay, great. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And this has been another episode of Boundless Body Radio.